The year is 2027. You're standing in the lobby of a Fortune 500 financial services firm in downtown Manhattan. It is 9 a.m. on a Tuesday. The marble floors are polished to a mirror shine. The HVAC system is humming, keeping the air a crisp 68 degrees. The servers in the basement are running at near maximum capacity, consuming enough electricity to power a small town. But there is no sound. There is no chatter of analysts rushing to the elevator. There is no clinking of coffee cups. There is no line at the security desk. If you were to walk past the turnstiles and take the elevator up to the 34th floor, the floor that used to house the junior analyst division, you would find the lights are off. The desks are still there. The monitors are still mounted, but the chairs are empty. This company just posted its highest quarterly profit in history. Its stock price has doubled in the last 18 months. It is more efficient, faster, and more productive than it has ever been since its founding a century ago. But it is a ghost ship. You're looking at a zombie corporation. For years, the media told you to watch out for the Terminators. They told you to watch out for the robots that would physically push you out of the factory, or the sentient computer that would launch the nukes. We spent decades preparing for a loud, violent apocalypse. But the end of the human workforce didn't arrive with a bang. It arrived with a memo. It started silently. It didn't start with mass firings. It started with a hiring freeze. In 2025, the company simply decided not to hire the fresh crop of college graduates. Why would they? An AI agent could process the data 20% faster and 10% better than a junior employee for a fraction of the cost. Then the freeze moved up. The mid-level managers, the ones whose job was to oversee the juniors, found they had no one to manage. The AI agents didn't need supervision, they just needed compute. So the managers were let go, quietly, one by one. Now the corporate structure is no longer a pyramid. It is a flat line. A few executives at the top and a sprawling silent ocean of intelligence in the cloud below. This is not a scene from a science fiction novel. This is the economic reality that is currently being built in data centers across Northern Virginia and Silicon Valley. We are entering an era where the most valuable entities on Earth simply do not need us. The scary part isn't that the AI hates you. The scary part is that the AI, and the people who own it, no longer have an incentive to care about you. This is the intelligence curse. It is easy to dismiss that opening scene as fear-mongering. We've heard the robots are coming for 50 years, and yet unemployment is still low. We are told that technology always creates more jobs than it destroys. We are told that AI is just a tool, like a hammer or a spreadsheet, and that humans will always be needed to wield it. But in April 2025, two researchers, Luke Drago and Rudolph Lane, released a paper that fundamentally dismantled that optimism. It is titled The Intelligence Curse. This document is not a piece of speculative fiction. It is an economic roadmap that outlines, with terrifying precision, exactly how the transition from human labour to machine labour breaks the fundamental social contract of our civilization. To understand why this paper is so important, you have to look at the timeline we're living through. In 2019, the best AI models couldn't write a coherent paragraph. By 2023, they were passing the bar exam. By the start of 2025, AI systems were resolving nearly 50% of real-world coding problems, up from just 4% 2 years prior. We are seeing a new Moore's law, where the length of tasks an AI can autonomously complete is doubling every 7 months. The governments of the world saw this coming. In 2024, a congressional commission recommended a Manhattan Project-like program to acquire artificial general intelligence. By the start of 2025, we saw the announcement of Project Stargate, a $500 billion investment infrastructure plan involving OpenAI and the US government. The money is real, the capability is real, and the Drago and Lane paper argues that this technological explosion triggers a specific economic phenomenon called pyramid replacement. Here is how it works. Every modern white-collar company is built like a pyramid. You have a massive base of entry-level employees, a smaller layer of middle management, and a tiny tip of senior leadership. Historically, you needed that base. You hired fresh graduates, trained them, and the best ones moved up to become managers, but AI attacks the pyramid from the bottom up. The first wave of AI agents doesn't replace the CEO, it replaces the junior analyst, it replaces the entry-level coder, it replaces the paralegal. When these tools are deployed, companies don't fire everyone immediately. That creates bad PR. Instead, they stop hiring. They let attrition take its course. But as the AI gets better, it climbs the pyramid. It starts doing the work of the middle manager. Eventually, the only humans left are the C-suite, directing a swarm of AI agents. This leads to the core thesis of the intelligence curse. Throughout history, powerful actors, governments, kings, corporations, have needed people. A government needs citizens to pay taxes so it can build roads and armies. A corporation needs employees to build products and consumers to buy them. Because they needed us, they invested in us. They built schools to make us smarter workers. They built hospitals to keep us healthy. They granted us rights to keep us productive. But what happens when the primary source of wealth is no longer human labour, but intelligence generated by a server farm? The paper compares this future to a rentier state, countries like Saudi Arabia or the Democratic Republic of Congo. These nations make their money from natural resources, oil or minerals, not from the taxes of their citizens. Because the government doesn't rely on the people for money, it has no incentive to invest in them. The wealth sits in the ground, and the people live in poverty, ignored by the power structure. AI is the new oil. It is a resource that requires immense capital to extract, and control is concentrated in the hands of a few. If a state or a company can generate trillions of dollars of value from AI without needing human labour, they lose the economic incentive to care about your well-being. They don't need to educate you because they don't need you to work. They don't need to pay you because you aren't producing value. This is the curse. It is the decoupling of human necessity from economic growth. As the paper chillingly states, humans need not apply, and so humans will not get paid. In the next section, we're going to look at exactly how this unravelling happens, step by step, and why the safeguards we think will protect us, like democracy or market competition, might not be strong enough to hold back the tide. To understand how your career ends, you don't need to look at a robot. You need to look at an organisational chart. For the last 100 years, the modern corporation has been shaped like a pyramid. At the wide base, you have the entry-level employees, the juniors, the interns, the associates. They do the grunt work. Above them sits middle management, the people who check the work. And at the very narrow peak, you have the C-suite, the executives who set the strategy. This structure wasn't an accident. It was a biological necessity. Companies hired fresh, inexperienced talent not because they were efficient. In fact, junior employees are often expensive and make mistakes, but because they needed to replenish the ecosystem. You hire 10 junior analysts today so that in 5 years, you have 2 good senior managers. It was a system of social mobility that kept the economy alive. The new replaced the old, and talent flowed upward. But Drago and Lane's research identifies a phenomenon that stops this flow dead in its tracks. They call it pyramid replacement. It begins with a simple economic calculation. Imagine you're a CEO in 2026. An AI lab releases a new model. It can complete any text-based task 20% faster than your junior employees, and it does it with higher accuracy. Running this AI to do the work of one full-time employee costs about $10,000 a year. Compare that to a human. A human needs a salary, benefits, health insurance, and office space. A human gets sick. A human has bad days. An AI agent works 24/7, never complains, and costs 80% less than the cheapest human you can find. Now, here is where the silent purge begins. Most companies won't fire everyone on day one. That creates panic. It creates bad press. Instead, they choose option 3. Adopt it slowly by just not hiring more people. The next time a junior analyst quits, you don't replace them, you just buy more compute. The next time an intern class is due to start, you cancel the program. You enact a hiring freeze at the entry level. This is the first stage of the collapse. The bottom layer of the pyramid dissolves. But the technology doesn't stand still. As we've seen, the length of tasks an AI can autonomously complete is doubling every 7 months. In the beginning, the AI needs a human manager to check its work, but soon the AI gets better. It learns to check itself. It becomes natively agentic, meaning it can pursue long-term goals without human intervention. If the silent emptying of the corporate office is the how, we must now turn to the why. Why would a society allow its own population to become obsolete? To understand the future of your government, you don't need to look at Washington DC or Brussels in 2025. You need to look at the Democratic Republic of Congo. You need to look at Venezuela. You need to look at the history of the rentier state. For the last 2 centuries, in the developed world, we have lived under a very specific transactional social contract. We tell ourselves that our governments invest in us, in our education, our healthcare, our infrastructure, because of values. We believe they build schools because they believe in the moral good of learning. We believe they build hospitals because they care about human life. Drago and Lane's research suggests a much colder, more mechanical truth. They argue that powerful actors care about you for exactly 2 reasons. First, you offer a return on investment, usually through taxes, and second, you impact their ability to retain power. In a modern, diversified economy, the state needs you. They need you to be smart, healthy, and productive so you can get a high-paying job and pay income tax. That tax revenue funds the state's power. This creates a feedback loop. The government invests in you, you generate wealth, the government taxes that wealth, and the cycle continues. But what happens when the state finds a way to make money that doesn't involve you at all? This is what economists call the resource curse. Look at the Democratic Republic of Congo. It sits on over $24 trillion worth of untapped minerals. It should be one of the richest nations on Earth. Instead, it is among the 5 poorest. Why? Because the wealth comes from the ground, not the people. The groups that control the mines don't need the population to be educated or healthy to extract the minerals. In fact, a powerful, educated population is just a threat. So they simply don't invest in them. The wealth flows directly from the resource to the elite, bypassing the citizens entirely. The intelligence curse is the realization that Ekchi is about to turn every advanced nation into a digital version of a petrostate. In the post-labor economy, intelligence becomes the natural resource. It is the oil, it is the diamonds, it is the gold. The paper argues that as AI capabilities scale, the companies that produce advanced AI and the companies that use them will generate astronomical revenues. These revenues will be derived from intelligence on tap. Here is the terrifying shift in incentives. The state will still need money. But in this future, taxing your income becomes a waste of time because you don't have any. Instead, the state will shift its tax base to the corporate giants. They will tax the AI labs. They will tax the autonomous trading firms. They will tax the robot factories. When the government's revenue comes primarily from taxing AI companies rather than human workers, the government's loyalty shifts. They no longer need to maximize your productivity. They need to maximize the AI's productivity. This breaks the core social contract. The paper explicitly states, because their revenues will come from intelligence on tap instead of people, they won't receive returns on investments like education, employment, or a welfare state. Why build a new university when the smartest engineers are digital? Why fix the subway system when the workforce is virtual? Why protect free speech when the citizens have no economic leverage to strike? We often assume that democracy will save us. We assume that we can just vote for a government that forces the companies to share the wealth. But the resource curse shows us that when the people lose their economic power, they lose their political power soon after. In rentier states, the government becomes independent of the people. It becomes a leviathan that floats above society, sustained by its resource rents. Drago and Lane warn that the intelligence curse is likely to be stronger than the oil curse. Why? Because you can run out of oil, you cannot run out of intelligence. Oil states arguably have a long-term incentive to diversify their economies, because they know the oil will eventually dry up. But AI systems will only get better, cheaper, and faster. There is no point in the future where the state says, okay, the AI is finished, we need to go back to using humans. The path of least resistance for the state is to tax the AI, secure its own power, and let the human population drift into irrelevance. This creates a caste system of nations. The countries that host the AI labs, the United States of Compute, or the Republic of Algorithms, will become staggeringly wealthy, but that wealth will be concentrated in the hands of the state and the tech giants. The citizens of these nations will be reduced to legacy code, outdated components of a system that has upgraded past them. And what about the nations that don't control the AI? They fall even further behind, becoming vassal states in a new form of digital colonialism. The researchers note a chilling historical parallel. The transition from hunter-gatherer societies to farming societies didn't lead to more freedom. It led to rigid hierarchies and kings. We move from the egalitarianism of the tribe to the tyranny of the feudal lord. AI threatens to return us to a feudal structure, a world where a small aristocracy owns the land, the data centers and the GPUs, and the peasantry, the rest of us, lives on their benevolence. But in feudal times, the lord at least needed the peasants to harvest the crops. In the age of the intelligence curse, the lord has automated the harvest. This leads us to the most personal and psychological aspect of the crisis. It's not just about money, it's about meaning. It's about the one thing that has driven human progress for 10,000 years: ambition. When the machine can do everything better than you, not just the grunt work, but the creative work, the strategic work, the genius work, what is left for you to aspire to? The paper calls this the death of ambition, and that is where we turn next. Suddenly, the middle managers, the people whose entire careers are built on supervising the juniors, find themselves in a precarious position. They are no longer managing people, they are managing software. And it turns out one manager can oversee 1,000 AI agents, so the middle layer begins to vanish. The companies might wait for a recession, a shock, to justify the layoffs, blaming the economy rather than the technology. But the result is the same. The pyramid is being hollowed out from the inside. By stage 4 of this process, the corporate organism has fundamentally mutated. The vast majority of roles in the company are performed by AI. The human touch, that vague quality we assured ourselves would save us, turns out to be largely irrelevant for the operational efficiency of a bank or a law firm or a logistics company. Eventually you reach stage 5. The only humans left are the C-suite. In this scenario, a multi-billion-dollar company might employ fewer than 50 people. The executives sit at the top providing high-level direction, increase market share in Asia, or optimize the supply chain for Q4, and a vast invisible horde of AI agents executes those commands instantly. This isn't just about unemployment, it is about the destruction of the mechanism that allows society to function. Think about what this means for a moment. If the entry-level job is automated, how does anyone ever become a senior expert? You cannot become a master if you're never allowed to be an apprentice. The paper warns that this will remove the need for regular people in our economy. It stops social mobility entirely. The ladder isn't just pulled up, it is incinerated. If you are a young person in this world, you don't get a foot in the door because there is no door. The career path as we know it ceases to exist. The children of the future will live in the shadow of their parents, unable to advance, because the only way to get power is to already have capital. We are looking at a future where the organisational chart of a Fortune 500 company looks less like a pyramid and more like a flat line floating in the clouds, completely disconnected from the human population on the ground. And this brings us to the truly terrifying realization. When companies no longer need employees to generate wealth, they stop acting like employers. They start acting like something else entirely. Anthropic's CEO, Dario Amodei, recently compared the impact of powerful AI to a country of geniuses in a data center. That phrase should send a chill down your spine. Because if a corporation has a country of geniuses trapped in a box, working for pennies of electricity, why would they ever hire you? They wouldn't. And once the corporations stop hiring, the government stop caring. This leads us directly into the second and perhaps more dangerous phase of the unraveling, the resource curse 2.0. Because if you think the government will step in to save you when the jobs disappear, you haven't been paying attention to where the money comes from. We've talked about the loss of jobs. We've talked about the loss of the social contract. But there is a third loss, one that is harder to quantify, but perhaps more devastating to the human spirit. The loss of ambition. For generations, the fundamental promise of the modern world has been simple. If you have talent, if you have drive, and if you work harder than everyone else, you can change your station in life. We call it the American dream. We call it social mobility. It is the engine that drives progress. Drago and Lane argue that the intelligence curse breaks this engine permanently. To understand why, you have to understand the relationship between capital, money and machines, and labour, human effort. Historically, money has always struggled to buy talent. You can be a billionaire, but you cannot simply buy a breakthrough in physics or a masterpiece painting. You have to find a human genius, hire them, and hope they perform. Talent was rare, it was finicky, and it was leverage. Labour replacing AI changes the physics of this equation. Intelligence is no longer rare, it is copyable. In the past, if you found a star researcher, you had one star researcher. In the future, if you train a star AI researcher, you can copy it 1,000,000 times. As the paper notes, everyone with enough money to burn on GPUs gets the AI star researcher. This means that capital, money, can now be converted directly into results, without needing a human in the middle. What does this do to the self-made man or woman? Consider the entrepreneur. Today, entrepreneurship is the technology of ambition for young people. But in the near future, venture capital funds won't need to find human founders. They will be able to directly convert money into hundreds of startup attempts all run by AIs. The scrappy founder in a garage cannot compete with a server farm that can run 1,000 simulations of a business model per second. Consider the intellectual or the scientist. We are accustomed to the idea of the human genius, the Einsteins, the Curies. But the era of human achievement in hard sciences may end within a few years. Even the world historic intellectual, the philosophers who shape our ideologies, might go extinct, drowned out by a flood of superhumanly persuasive AI-generated ideologies. If you cannot outthink, outwork, or outcreate the machine, how do you distinguish yourself? The answer is, you don't. The paper describes a future society that is permanently static. It warns of a world where current power imbalances might be amplified and then turned immutable. If you are rich when the AGI arrives, you and your descendants stay rich forever because your capital can do anything. If you are poor, you stay poor because your labour is worth nothing. We are looking at the return of a caste system. The paper paints a haunting picture of the next generation. The children of the future will live their lives in the shadow of their parents, with social mobility extinct. In the past, you might say you were powerful because you built a company. In the future, the answer to why is this person powerful will simply be, oh, my uncle was technical staff at OpenAI. This is the final nail in the coffin of the world we knew. A world without work is one thing. A world without purpose, where the hierarchy is frozen in silicon forever, is something else entirely. I know what you're thinking. I see it in the comments every time I talk about this. You're thinking, Who cares if we don't work? We'll just tax the robots and have universal basic income. We'll live in a post-scarcity paradise. As someone who has analysed the policy roadmaps coming out of these labs, I need to tell you, that is a dangerous fantasy. The Intelligence Curse paper explicitly warns against relying on this default solution. First, there is the math. Expanding the social safety net to support an entire population requires massive amounts of money. But as we discussed, the state's incentives are shifting, fiscal constraints are already tight, and politically, the high-earning households, the ones who own the AI, are not going to be happy about subsidising a permanent underclass that contributes nothing. But the real danger isn't that UB won't happen. The real danger is that even if it does happen, it turns us into pets. If you rely entirely on a monthly check from a government that doesn't need you, you have no leverage, you have no strike power, you have no bargaining chips, you're kept alive only by benevolent charity. And as history shows, benevolence is a very fragile thing to bet your life on. So, what is the alternative? This is the part the tech giants don't say out loud. There is a fork in the road. We are currently sprinting down the path of labour replacing AI. We are building agents, machines designed to be the worker. But we could be building labour augmenting AI. We could be building human-in-the-loop systems. We could be building tools instead of agents. Imagine a future where AI isn't a separate entity that does your job, but an exoskeleton that helps you do it. Imagine brain-computer interfaces that increase the bandwidth between your mind and the machine. Imagine pro-human user interfaces that put you in the driver's seat of a swarm of intelligence. In that world, the human is still the bottleneck of value. The human is still the CEO of the process. If the human is necessary, the human gets paid. If the human is necessary, the government invests in the human. The paper calls this breaking the intelligence curse. It argues we must resist the mimetic forces pushing along the AI agent hypertrain. We have to choose to build technology that uplifts humans rather than obsoleting them. But right now, the trillions of dollars in investment are betting on your obsolescence. We are standing at the edge of the greatest disruption in human history. The silence in this office isn't just the absence of noise, it is the absence of leverage. It is the silence of a species that has handed over the keys to its own civilization. If we stay on this path, the path of the intelligence curse, we are walking into a trap. We are building a world where powerful actors, states and corporations derive their power from a resource that has nothing to do with us. The scariest thing about this paper isn't the poverty. It isn't the inequality. It's the apathy. It's the idea that the system won't hate us. It just won't think about us. We will be the legacy code of the planet. Maintained, perhaps, out of nostalgia, or deleted eventually for efficiency. Drago and Lane end their research with a challenge. The direction of civilization is not fixed. History is yours to write. But to write history, you have to hold the pen. And right now, we're busy building a machine to hold it for us. The question isn't what the AI will do to us. The question is, what will the powerful do to us when they have the AI? When they no longer need you, will they keep you?